Hey everyone! Today, we're going to talk about something really cool. How to take a bunch of raw, boring data and turn it into a story that actually makes sense. We'll be diving into two of Python's heavy hitters for visualization, Matplotlib and Seaborn, to see how they help us find the patterns hidden deep inside the numbers.
Okay, so let's start with a site we've all seen before, right? A table. It's just a wall of numbers. Sure, the information is all in there somewhere, but it's so dense, so overwhelming. Honestly, it's almost impossible to get any real meaning out of it just by looking.
So, looking at this sea of numbers, I've got to ask you, can you spot the trend? Can you tell me what's going on here? Which way are things heading? It's tough, isn't it? Your brain has to work so hard just to compare one number to the next.
Now what about this? This is the exact same data, but instead of a table, it's a simple bar chart. And boom, the trend is suddenly crystal clear. The story just leaps right off the screen. This is the magic of data visualization. It turns total confusion into instant clarity. So how do we make that magic happen? Here's our game plan for this explainer. First, we'll talk about why we visualize data in the first place. Then we'll meet our two main tools, Matplotlib and Seaborn. After that, we'll see how they work together, and finally, we'll figure out how to pick the right one for the job. All right, first up, from numbers to narrative. And this is a really important idea. Visualization isn't just a fancy thing you do at the very end. No, it's a crucial part of the whole process of actually understanding what your data is trying to tell you. So what exactly is data visualization? Well, at its heart, it's the art of translating information into a visual language. Its whole purpose, the reason we do it, is to make all those hidden patterns, those secret trends, and those subtle relationships in the data pop out so our brains can get them in an instant. So let's get into our first tool for doing this, Matplotlib. You should think of this one as the foundation, the bedrock of all plotting in Python. It's incredibly powerful, it can do almost anything, and it gives you fine-grained control over every little detail. And the key word for Matplotlib is definitely control. I mean, if you need to customize every single thing, the exact placement of a label, the thickness of a line, or maybe a totally custom chart type for a scientific paper, Matplotlib is what you reach for. It lets you build your visualization from the ground up, exactly the way you want it.
You can really see the Matplotlib philosophy right here. It's a very deliberate, step-by-step process. You don't just ask for a chart. No, you build it. You start by creating a canvas, that's the figure and axis. Then you put your data on it. And finally, you add all the descriptive bits like labels and a title. It's like an artist preparing their canvas before they start painting.
Now, all that control is amazing, but it can be a lot of work. So what if you're not trying to create a masterpiece for a museum? What if you just need to whip up a good-looking, standard chart to see what's going on in your data, and you need it, like, now?
You bet there is. And that leads us perfectly to our second tool, Seaborn. If Matplotlib is the powerful all-purpose workshop, Seaborn is your brilliant, super efficient assistant. It's actually built on top of Matplotlib, but it's designed to make creating beautiful statistical plots incredibly simple and fast.
One of Seaborn's absolute superpowers is how beautifully it works with Pandas data frames. I mean, that's where most of our data lives anyway, right? This means you can just hand your whole data table to a Seaborn function, tell it which columns to use, and poof, it takes care of the rest. It's a huge time saver.
And this right here shows you just how powerful that is. Seaborn has simple, one-line commands for all the most common charts you'd ever need. Want to see how ages are distributed? Histplot. Need to see if ad spending is related to sales? Scatterplot. Compare products? Barplot. It makes the common stuff ridiculously easy.
Now, it's really easy to think of these two as competitors, like you have to choose one or the other. But that's totally the wrong way to look at it. The real magic happens when you realize they're not rivals, they're partners, working together towards the same goal of making your data make sense.
I absolutely love this analogy because it makes things so clear. Matplotlib is the professional artist's entire studio. You've got every paint, every brush, a blank canvas. You can create anything, but it takes skill and time. Seaborn, on the other hand, is like a high-quality stencil kit. It lets you create perfect, beautiful, standard designs quickly and easily, every single time.
So what does this partnership look like in the real world? Well, this is the most common and effective workflow you'll see. You start by getting your data all cleaned up in Pandas, then you use Seaborn to get like 90% of the way there with a fantastic looking plot in just one line of code. And then, if you need to add a custom note or tweak one tiny little thing, you pull out Matplotlib to add those final perfect touches.
So we know how they work together, but that brings up a good question. How do you know which one to start with? In our last section here, we're going to break down how to choose the right brush for whatever you're trying to paint.
This table really sums it up perfectly. You should reach for Matplotlib when you need that precise, low-level control, or you're creating a completely custom, one-of-a-kind visualization. But you should start with Seaborn when you're just exploring your data, trying to find the story, and need quick, clean statistical plots to guide you.
But let's never forget the whole point of all of this. It doesn't matter which tool you use or how fancy your code is. At the end of the day, the only thing that matters is clear communication. A chart is only a success if it helps someone understand the data better. Period.
So, to wrap this all up, your data has a story locked inside it. Matplotlib gives you the power to tell that story with absolute precision, and Seaborn gives you the speed to find the plot really fast. Used together, they make you a master storyteller.
And I'll just leave you with this final thought. Every data set you ever touch is a story just waiting to be told. The only question is, how will you choose to tell it? Will you need the artist's toolkit or the smart assistant?